friends. Welcome back to How to Grow My Small Business. This podcast is where we talk about building profitable businesses with faith at the center. I'm Lindsay Fletcher, your host and growth strategist and connection coach. And today we are going to talk about strategies to reconnect, nurture, and re-engage our current and past clients so that we can set ourselves up for more referrals, renewals, and opportunities when it turns 2026. And can you even believe it? That Thanksgiving is 2.5 weeks away at this point. Things are getting real. Christmas is almost here, friends. Okay, while lots of coaches are talking about holiday promotions, and yes, I think you can and should do some sort of promotion, the holiday season is also a great time to slow down and check in, not just with family, but with current and past clients. And if you've ever wondered how to stay top of mind with your clients without being salesy, this episode is your roadmap. So let's start with why client check-ins matter. And you know that I'm going to start this section off with some faith talk. God is relationship driven. He wants relationships with us, and I believe he wants us to have relationships with others. And stewardship of the people God has already brought into your business is what can really sustain your growth. So stewardship, as a definition, is the responsible management or care of something like resources, time, talents. It is the act of taking care of something that has been entrusted to you rather owning it outright. So as a Christian, I believe that God is calling us to steward our relationships just as much as he's asking us to steward our time, our money, our talents, our gifts, our skills, all the things, right? Jesus built relationships and got into heart matters. And so I think it's something worth considering doing in our businesses too. Now, there seem to be two camps of business during the holiday season. Those that ramp up and go full steam ahead and burn the midnight oil, and then those that slow down and sort of kind of drop off towards the end of the year. For example, retail stores, online and brick and mortars, tend to ramp up this time of year because of the gift giving, right? We're all out shopping, we're looking for unique gifts, but service-based businesses sometimes see a slowdown because people are spending money on gift giving instead of, let's say, home repairs, right? So if you have an electrician business or a plumbing business or some type of remodeling, construction type of business, you might see a slowdown this year or this time of year. So let's talk about what to do if your business does slow down a bit, because Q4 can be relationship building gold, and intentional follow-up with current and past clients can really stand out. If you are a B2B business, meaning you sell from your business to other businesses, this is especially a great time to re-engage because many of your clients are reflecting on their wins and their struggles this time of year in preparation for a good start to 2026. So especially if you are B2B, I would say this is a great time to do this. And by the way, God wants us to steward our resources like money. So let's talk really quickly about how much it costs to get a new client versus how much it costs to retain an existing client. I read the other day that retaining a client costs 5 to 7 times less than acquiring a new one. So let's use our resources wisely and let's put some focus on re-engaging and nurturing the relationships that we already have, that we've already started, and let's strengthen those. And our businesses will grow as a result, okay? So let's talk about who to reach out to. I want you to open up your CRM, and I'm hoping that you have a CRM, and if you don't, I'm hoping you have a spreadsheet or a list somewhere of all of the clients, past, present, and even potential future clients, okay? As you run through your client list, I want you to create 3 buckets. The first bucket is your current clients, okay? So we're going to check on how they're doing. We're going to ask about their next set of goals or the next set of products, right? We're going to thank them. We'll talk about kind of exactly what to say or give you a template of what to say here in a minute. But first bucket is your current clients. Your second bucket are your past clients. The purpose of your reach out is going to remind them what they accomplished. You're going to invite them to share wins and open the door for new needs or new wants in the future, right? And then the third bucket are your warm leads or your network contacts. These might be people who haven't bought from you yet, but engaged with you in the past year. And you might be thinking, Lindsay, oh my Lord, there's no way I could reach out to someone that hasn't engaged with me in 10 or 12 months. What in the world would I even say to that person? Well, let's talk about that in just a second. But first, I want to give you an action item to do this week, or maybe even today if you have a 30-minute stretch. I want you to pull your client list and highlight 10 to 15 people that you can meaningfully reach out to before the end of the month. Okay, so let's talk about what to say. We're going to reach out to them, and here are some phrases and some structure for authentic outreach. You don't have to use what I'm saying word for word, but this will at least give you a template or a framework, and then you can make it sound like you, right? So for the people who are your current clients, you're going to reach out to them and you're going to say, hey, Johnny, I was reflecting on this year and I wanted to thank you for trusting me with insert whatever you help them with, right? Maybe that was cleaning up their skincare products. Maybe that was making their home feel warm and cozy and smelling really nice and inviting with some new candles. Maybe you are an insurance agent and you're thanking them for trusting you with their homeowner's policy and maybe their auto insurance. I don't know, right? Insert whatever it is that you help them with. So, hey, insert client name. I was reflecting on this year and I wanted to thank you for trusting me with insert whatever you help them with, right? And then the next part is you're going to reflect on growth. So I loved seeing how you insert specific result here. I love seeing how you used the candles that you bought from my store in your social media posts or in your Instagram stories. Are you still loving the candles as much as you did when you first bought them? Or how's that going now, right? Or have you used it all the way, right? And then you can add some value by sending maybe a resource on how to get the most out of your candles, right? And then you're going to extend an open door. So the next piece of this would be something like, I'd love to share what we have coming out in 2026. And this is especially if you're on the phone. Or I'd love to share what we are planning for next year and get your feedback. So if you're a candle maker, you're going to say something like, I'd love to share some of the scents that we have coming out in 2026. Would you be interested in hearing about those? Pique their interest. Get them excited about what you have coming. Ask for their feedback. If you're in a service business like the insurance agent that I just said, you would say, you're reflecting on this year. You wanted to thank them for trusting you with their insurance policies. You loved working with them in making sure that their family was covered properly. You wanted to stay in touch and make sure that they know you have an open door policy, in air quotes, right? Like your phone, you will answer the phone, you will respond to texts, right? And then maybe you can send them a resource or a podcast episode or talk about upcoming coverages that they might need. For example, we are in the process of my oldest getting his driver's license. So we're going to not only be adding him to our auto policy, but we have friends that have been through, how do I explain this without giving too much information that's not mine to share? They've been through a horrific event with one of their children, and they were sued and thankfully had an umbrella policy that ended up paying out for the event that happened and the litigation that ensued because of that. So maybe it's something like, hey, I know your son's about to turn 16. Let's talk about adding him to your auto policy. Let's talk about what that looks like and what the process is. For example, in Texas, if you're an insurance agent, please do not come at me. I'm just repeating what I think the process is, right? But they're not added to our policies until they actually have their license. our insurance agent wanted our son's driver's permit, but actually need to add him to the policy until he gets his license here in a few days, right? So maybe it's sending along some sort of resource about, hey, considering an umbrella policy might be beneficial to your family. And then you can share what your business or what you are looking at for 2026. Maybe you are going to add life insurance to your list of products and services that you offer. I don't know what that looks like, but you could share what you have coming up for 2026, or maybe what the market for insurance looks like rolling into 2026 and kind of what the trends are in expenses or policies. The thing that I want you to hear in this whole section is that I never said I'm just checking in or I'm following up or I'm circling back to you, okay? We talked about this in a previous episode, and I think if you're on my email list, I also recently talked about this. But I want you to replace phrases like following up, circling back, checking in with I was thinking about your project, or I was thinking about your goal, or something like I wanted to share something that might help you as you plan for next year, or I wanted to share something new that we are working on, right? Okay. Now that you have the reasoning behind why we are doing these client check-ins, you have who you are actually reaching out to, and then you have what to say. Let's talk about how to systemize this information, because this could be the missing piece for you in your business in making sure you have this all documented, okay? So if you're not using a CRM system yet, there are free ones out there like HubSpot that are pretty robust. That they have a lot of options and a lot of things you can do in the free versions. And by the way, I'm not getting paid to say HubSpot. They just have a good one that is free. There are free CRM systems that can help you track all of this stuff. So if you don't have one already, go create a login on HubSpot if you don't have one. And let's talk about how to document this in your system, okay? So you're going to put all of the contacts you have for your business in here. Some of them are going to be B2B contacts. Some of them are going to be actual clients. But you can create tags for your client relationships. Maybe this is, maybe someone in there is a referral partner. You can tag them as a referral partner. You can tag them as a past client, a current client, a potential client, right? Warm, hot, cold leads. There are lots and lots of ways to tag people. You could tag by location. If you're in a major, like a major city like Houston, you could tag Houston proper. You could tag Cypress, Spring, the Woodlands, Willis, Conroe. Those are some of the northern suburbs, right? So you could tag them by location. You can tag them by product or service so that you know what they're currently using quickly by looking, right? This will help you in segmenting your client list so that you can take a quick look, or you can pull a list based on a tag. Let's say if they're in a certain location, maybe you have 2 retail stores and one is going to run a promotion. You're going to send an email blast out to the ones that are closest to that location, right? But anyway, it just helps you segment your client list. Okay, there's also a place in CRMs to put in notes and tasks for yourself. Now, I'm 44 years old, and if you are younger than me, I am just going to tell you that at some point, your brain will not remember all of the details of every conversation, okay? And you'll need notes to trigger your memory for your next conversation with that same person. And then you can also create a task with a date for your next step. So the next step could be reaching back out to try to connect again if you didn't get to talk to them, right? If you're doing phone calls or you're sending text messages and you don't hear anything back, maybe it's circling back. Please don't use those words, but maybe it's circling back to this particular contact, right? Maybe it's sending over a contract because you sold a new service because you had a conversation. Maybe it's following up on a new product or service that they purchased because of your conversation, right? So the second part of this is putting it on your to-dos and on your schedule. So this could take 30 minutes a day to pump out some customer engagement, some re-engagement with past clients. Maybe it's 30 minutes a week. It depends on how many clients you have in your system, in your business. But the important part here is that you do some re-engagement, okay? Like I said earlier in this podcast episode, it costs you 5 to 7 times more to get a new client than it does to retain the ones you already have, okay? So let's say that it costs you $100 to retain an existing client. It could cost you upwards of $500 to $700 to get a new client in marketing and advertising and time and labor, right? So what I'm telling you here, I'm going to be blunt if you haven't been able to read between the lines, is that there is money in your current customer list, okay? There is money sitting in your CRM, and you are missing out on revenue and profit in your business because you haven't circled back, you haven't checked in, you haven't followed up. Please don't say those words. Oh, my Lord. But it's true. What is it that they say? There's fortune in the follow-ups. That's absolutely true. And here's the deal. When you serve and you connect with your clients first, sales will naturally follow. And then I want to encourage you to pray before you reach out. Ask God to highlight who to connect with. Ask Him what to say. Ask Him to give you Holy Spirit-led conversations. Okay, I kind of have been a spaz in this episode, but let's do a quick recap so that we're all on the same page, okay? We're going to review our client list, and then we are going to put them into 3 buckets: past, current, and then potential future customers, okay? Then we're going to send authentic, gratitude-based check-ins, but we're not going to use the words check-in, circle back, or follow-up, okay? You're going to share some new things you're doing. You're going to thank them for being a client. You're going to ask them how it's going with your product or service, right? And then you're going to share something that's coming up that's new, all right? Then we are going to document all of this in your CRM system, because that is how we're going to remember what we've done. And then we're going to schedule those tasks so we know what the next steps are for that individual client, so that we don't have to keep all of that information on our brain. That can all live in the CRM, and we don't wake up panicking in the middle of the night. Have you ever done that? Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night panicking because you maybe forgot to follow up with someone? I have, and that is not fun. And that's why we use a CRM system. Okay, I want you to keep it relational, not transactional. Let's really focus on building relationships and strengthening those relationships through the end of the year into 2026. And for some of you that are really, really close to hitting your revenue goals for 2025, start here. This is where you can knock it out of the park. All right, if this episode was helpful for you, would you please share it on your social media or send it to a friend via text? I would super duper appreciate that. It helps all of the podcast apps know to share this show with other people if it's being shared by my listeners. Thank you again for being here, and thank you for listening to another episode of How to Grow My Small Business. As always, I am praying for you, and I'm praying for your business. I'll talk to you next week.